haven't heard, Stencil One, the official released stable version, has now come out. And so now we're going to upgrade our project, and it takes a little bit of time. Depending on the size of your project, the bigger your project, obviously the longer it's going to take. But the sooner you get this done, the better, because that will stop you from hitting any kind of snags in the near future. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. So I've got the project open here on the left, and then on the right, I've got the Breaking Changes doc that they've got on GitHub for Stencil. And if you need those links, man, they's in the description. So go ahead and jump down there, clone down the project, and walk it along, or just open your project up. This should be pretty much applicable to anybody who's on Stencil 0.18 or lower. Cool. So let's jump right in here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to jump into the package.json to upgrade to this version, obviously. So down here where it says Stencil Core, we're going to put here, we're going to put 1. And then we're also going to have to do that for Ionic Core. So Ionic Core has a specific version for dealing with Stencil One for the moment. And eventually it will iron itself out. But for right now, we're just going to put 1 in here as well. And then our Firebase we're going to leave. Our FS Extra is fine. Our workbox build, it used to be at 3.4.1, but I'm fairly certain that it's actually supposed to be 4.3.1 in this new version. So I'll go ahead and upgrade that while we're here. And so now we've updated our version. So we've updated Ionic Core, Stencil Core, and our workbox build. So let's go ahead and save that guy. And now we're going to, in our terminal here, you can open that guy up with Control tilde, or you can just open it by going to View Terminal. And then what we're going to do is we're going to run npm install so that we can install the new dependencies. It's going to read our package. It's going to install the newest versions of everything. And then we should see some red lines start to pop up. So here you'll see it's trying to give us some hints and some different things. But we're just going to ignore all that for it now. And let's go ahead and jump into app home. And then hopefully here we're going to start to see some red underlines. Maybe not. VS Code might be a little behind. Okay, so now we've upgraded, but this is instantly going to break. So if we try to run npm start, it's going to tell us that there's an error because we're not doing all the things that we're going to have to do in order to get Stencil One working. So they made some big changes. They're not hard to implement. They're not anything that's going to be too difficult to replace. However, they kind of use some different things to kind of align themselves with JavaScript standards, which is a good thing for everyone. So cool. So one of the first things on the list here is we can see we need to import H into every single component. And so what H is hyperscript. So hyperscript is what they use in order to render JSX as HTML, or so it takes this file and it renders it into standard HTML. So even though this looks like HTML, you can see we can use these custom tags and we're in this render. All of that is all JSX. So in order for us to make sure that we don't have any weird typing issues, we need to import H into every single component now. And so they had said that this was a typing issue. They just wanted to make sure that we were getting the proper version of hyperscript. And this does create a little bit of an issue if you have dynamic components. So we had in the past made a video about how to make dynamic components, or a component that you can kind of say like, hey, I don't know what the name of this tag is going to be when I put it in here. But now there's a different way you can kind of work around that, and I will probably cover that in a future video. So this would be a good time to say subscribe, guys. Subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell so that you know all of the new videos that we're releasing. We're going to be hitting this channel hard here for the rest of the year. Now that we've kind of got things ironed out here at the lab, we've got a bunch of stuff coming down the pipes. So subscribe so you can catch all of that. And we will go ahead and at some point here make a video that shows how to make a dynamic component. But anywho, so now we went through our app home, our app profile, and our app root, and we went ahead and added the H up here, and we're going to get some red underlines, and this is probably just because the version here that VS Code is using is a little behind. So if we just close that guy and then reopen it, we should see it actually being correct now. There we go. So now you can see we're not getting that red underline. VS Code was just a little behind. So cool. So now we've imported H. So that's one of the big changes. We have to do that on every component. So any component that you make in the future, you have to import this H. And we're using Prettier, so they have to be in alphabetical order. So capitalized first and then lowercase. So ours always go at the end. And also, if you use the engine Madness Engine CLI tool, make sure that you run npm install-g Madness Engine so that you can get the latest version, because we've automatically added the commands on the CLI tool in order to, or we've automatically updated we've updated the CLI tool so that when you create a new component, it automatically scales with this H already defined, as well as some other nice tweaks. We now default to using CSS instead of Sass. And there's some other goodies in there as well, as far as if you're using Storybook. And again, link for the Storybook video we did for using Storybook with Stencil in the description below if you guys are interested in that. But let's keep moving here. So now they kind of describe here like why JSX or why H is defined like that, yada, yada, yada. Now we need to change our script tags. So another thing that they did in this release is they went ahead and changed the way that that we pull in the script. So remember, on this project, we're not actually going to be editing the source index.html. We have two different ones for the two different environments that we have. We have one for our local environment, one for our test environment. So in both of these files, we just need to update our script tags here. So you'll see that it used to be build/app. Now it's build/app/our.esm and then build/app. And you can see one of them is a type of module, and then one is no module. So what this means is that this is the ECMAScript module build of the application, which is what newer browsers will use, and that'll be the default. And then if they can't load that, it will fall back to using the old standard, the old no module regular script tag. And so this way the browser can do what is best for the current version. So cool. So now, hopefully I didn't name this anything weird. Okay, cool. Yeah, so, okay, so now we've updated it here. So let's do that same thing on our other environment file. So just make sure that if you have this environment stuff set up, you have some tasks that are copying, make sure that you change it in all the applicable locations. Okay, now we're going to go back into our package.json, and they're going to have us change some of these. These are really only important if you're actually using like a bundling your components and then using those components inside of other projects. We're not really doing that here, but I'm going to go ahead and go run through this process anyway, just so that you guys know how it works. So first off, we're going to define our module. So you can see that this one's even a different one. This is an MJS. So this is going to be our module version of our library, of our project here. So we're going to put this, and I'm just going to put these guys at the bottom. So we've got our module, and then we've got these guys, and these guys are the different, again, these are all different builds of the same component, just serving them for different environments, different browsers are on different pages, and you know, despite all of the work of JavaScript standards and stuff, there's still some kind of in between that they're kind of working with. So we've got all of those defined in our package.json now. We've already updated all of these guys. And actually, I just realized we probably want to change that stencil. No, I think we're good. We're probably good. Okay, so there we go. So now we've got that working. All is well there. Come on, mouse. Okay. There's a couple other things. Windows.namespace is no longer a thing. Prop mode is a reserved prop. There's some things that like we weren't really even using. That they just kind of offed, so that's fine. And then they've removed global JSX in favor of using JSX.element or JSX.element or HTML attributes JSX. Yeah, so it's all typing stuff. Again, this is only stuff that you have to use if you're like editing your typings and doing stuff like that. Generally, most projects probably won't touch some of this stuff, but again, read through this document. It's in the description, and make sure that you kind of hit all these guys. But we're just going to run through the ones that we need here. HTML stencil element is no longer a thing. They removed intrinsic elements. Okay, cool. So here's a big one. So before you could do event and then dot and then a key, and that would allow you to do something like key down.mask or .enter. And then what that would do is that would let you trigger on a certain key or something like that. Well, they've kind of gone with a more standard approach where you just listen for the basic key down event, and then you can look for the key inside of the event itself. We're not using any kind of key binding, at least I don't believe so. We're not using any key binding in here, so we're not going to worry about that. And the other big change with listen is that they went ahead and removed the ability for us to be able to like kind of scope our listener. via using like a what do you call it, a semi or a colon. So we used to be able to do event and then colon, window and then colon event, and then that would let us listen on the window, or body colon the event name, and that would let us listen to the body. But they've kind of changed that in favor of using target instead, and I think we will have to change something on that one. But let's take a look at our code here. We're going to go in our app root, which holds a lot of our basic implementations here, and this looks good. Nothing to change here. App profile, nothing to change here. Here is an issue on the new version of Ionic. They no longer have padding as an attribute because it seems kind of frivolous. Either you add it in CSS or something like that. No real need to have an attribute for that, so we can remove that guy. Our homepage probably has that same issue. Yep, gonna remove that padding there. And then let's see what else we got here. Any listeners? So we do have some listeners, but none of them are listening on body or anything like that. But basically, if you have something like this that's listening on the body on Ion input, instead of writing it like this, we're going to just listen for the event, and then the second the options for the listener, we can now say target, and then this will let us target a specific element or a specific tag to listen to that event on. So now we can do target body, target window, something like that, and that'll let us scope in to where we want to listen to. And instead of doing some kind of weird syntax of colon or something like that, now it seems something more standard. We're just passing it in with the options. There's some other options that they added here, so you can see they removed the enabled, so you can't enable and disable listeners anymore using the listener decorator. Now instead you're going to be basically using the standard add event listener, remove event listener. So they did a lot of work to make sure that they're not creating new standards and new things that JavaScript already has built in. And that's a really wise move, because that's going to make sure that this stays standard compliant and that the tutorials and the stuff that you're reading about JavaScript fit pretty well into what you're able to do in Stencil. And that's been the case for us. Cool. So there's some other things. They've deprecated the output target of docs and instead changed it to docs readme. And then I think they also have docs-json. I'm fairly certain, but you'll have to check me on that one. So, and then the other thing, if we're using host data, so host data was a way to apply classes or something to the actual element itself, the actual component that we're making on the component tag itself. So in our case, like this app home, if we wanted to add some styles or something to the actual app home element itself, we could use this host data, and instead they've gone with this host element. So we put a host tag at the very top of our component, and then we can define all the things we want to be on that host element, and it will magically make all that stuff happen. So all voids must return a promise, or all void method must return a promise. So any method that we make on one of our components, which are the things, the functionality that we can call outside of our component, we have to return async on those. And that's going to make sure that it returns a promise. And the reason why they did this, and it's very smart, the reason why they did all of this and the reason why all these things have to return promises is because they're actually doing some really smart work to make sure that you can call an event or you can call a method on the actual component itself, even if that method doesn't technically exist yet. So imagine you load the page, it knows that there is a app home component, but it doesn't know that there's a method, or like the JavaScript hasn't loaded yet for it to actually use the method. So you're calling a method and it's not defined yet. Well, this is going to make sure that it waits for a promise to come back, and that's going to make sure that our function runs whenever it is available. So that's super powerful and a really smart move on their part. So yeah, you can see here we just need to make all of our methods async, even if we return nothing. Cool. And you can see there's the illustration of that. So, you used to have to await element component on ready. Most of you probably haven't done that because it's just so rare that you have to do something like that. But this was kind of the way that you had to run it. You had to like await this event, and then once it fired, you could then finally fire your method. Now you don't have to do anything. It figures it out. It's just magic. So here's that thing I was talking about with the listener. So you can see they used to have a target and then the event, and now they've switched it to you just put the event in as the first argument, and the target gets defined as one of the ops or options. So then we've got the prop context. They're trying to, I think they're trying to deprecate the context on a prop as well. So that kind of, this one gets a little weird because we use this in order to implement like our modals and things like that from Ionic. So I'm interested to see how exactly I'm supposed to set those up. I haven't seen an alternative. It still works in this build, but if anybody knows how exactly or what the preferred method for initializing a modal or something in Ionic, please leave a comment below, or just say what's up, give us a thumbs up. We always are looking to connect with you guys and talk with the community. So cool. So then we've got the asset dir. If any of our components have an asset dir, they've switched that out for asset dirs so that we can define multiple directories where we're going to be serving assets from. And then the last thing is in our stencil config. We don't actually have any of this. So if you have a copy task, you can see that the copy task used to be something that happened outside. It happened no matter what. So like if you have the component set, or if you have a build for web, or you have this or that, your copy task would always run. And now they've allowed you to kind of, with your output targets, define that copy task individually for each one. So maybe you want it to copy over things whenever it's on the web version, but whenever you're building the component set, you don't need it to copy over anything. So you can control that now via your output targets, but we don't have anything like that going on, luckily, so we don't have to worry about that. And then there's some other new APIs. So there's some new stuff that's come out. And most of this stuff, so set mode and get mode, most of this new stuff is all based around testing and things like that. So we're going to set up for it here. However, we won't be really utilizing any of these in this video, and probably not in this series. So testing is a big beast, and there's lots of stuff to go into there. If you guys are interested in seeing us cover an entire series on doing testing with Jest and doing snapshot testing and all that kind of stuff, let us know down in the comments, and we would be glad to oblige. So cool. So this last thing that we need to do, you may have had something that looks like this inside of your package.json if you're working with Jest. If you are, go into your package.json, delete all that stuff out, and instead use this. They've very smartly created this preset that bundles in all these settings and all the default stuff that we have to have in order to do testing. And they're loading it directly from Stencil now. So that makes our life easier, because now we don't have to have a big, bulky, complicated thing here that we don't even really know. Like, this is all gibberish. Like, I know what it's doing, but it just seems like this is just way better. So cool. So that should do it. So if everything's gone well, I should be able to do npm start. And if I've done everything correctly, then it should load in the browser and we shouldn't have any issues. Boom. So now we still have our page here with our login. We can click login with GitHub. We get logged in. Our application works just as it did before. So that pretty much wraps it up here. I noticed that we are on Stencil 1.0.0. So if you didn't want to get locked into this specific 1.0.0 and you want to get the newest versions, I would recommend doing the tilde 1.0.0. Ionic has a really good video about what this tilde, or Ionic just released a video. I'll try to grab the link and put it in the description as well. They've got a really good video where they describe kind of the difference between this and this, the tilde and the what is it called? The caret. And basically, if we use this guy, we should now, when we do npm install, we should get the newest version here too. So we should get, let's see, npm start. So let's see what version we're on now. Oh, we're still on 1. Let's see, 1 point. So let's try our caret again. Let's see what happens there. So yeah, I'll try to grab that link for you guys so you can see what that, oops, not start, Bobby, come on. So let's install. Let's see if we can get it to upgrade our version here. Audited, found 0 vulnerabilities. I don't see it updating Stencil. Stencil Core, let's see what tells us the latest version of Stencil Core is. Loading, 1.1.6. Yeah, super helpful feature if you didn't know about that. You can hover over any package inside of your package.json, and VS Code will tell you the latest version, which is really helpful. So we'll go ahead and have it do 1.1.0. Now let's go ahead and do an install, and hopefully it's going to get us the latest 1.1.6. Let's go ahead and set npm start. There we go, 1.1.6. There we go. So now we're on the latest, greatest. Again, this tilde versus this, I'll put a video in there so you can see that. But there we go. I think that should do it. Well, thanks for tuning into this video. Hopefully this was helpful. This got you what you needed to get your projects from the Stencil beta to the actual fully fledged release of Stencil One. Super excited to continue on our series, and hopefully we'll have another video out for you this weekend. We're kind of up in the air about the schedule right now as far as like what we're doing, but we haven't lost sight. Like we are actually, we've been saying this for the whole series, but this series is building up towards something. And by the time it finishes, we're going to have a finished product that we're going to be sharing with you guys. And we would love to see your guys' guesses as to what we're building. Shoot us a message on Twitter or just hit us up on Facebook. We're kind of everywhere. So just let us know what you think we're doing. What do you think we're up to here at the labs? So awesome, guys. That'll do it for this one. We will catch you in the next video where we're going to cover Firebase hosting. See you guys.